Hey guys, how you doing? CaptainSlapable here with my review of my 2009 Kawasaki Ninja 250R. So the way I'm going to do this review is I'll split it up into 5 categories and I'll just give it kind of a brief breakdown on how it performs in each of those. So first up is ergonomics. Now the seat on these might not look like they're too comfy, and you'd be right, they're kind of hard, pretty damn hard, and you know, after maybe an hour of riding you kind of want to get off for another hour. Now the foot pegs on here, they kind of mean your knees will come right up into this recess here. Now I'm not exactly tall, but I have heard tall riders talk about how they find that their knees come out above the tank and out to the side too much, which is not a problem for me, but if you're over, say, like 6 foot or thereabouts, you might find it an issue. The riding position, I find it really comfortable. I've never had a problem with sore wrists sitting on here. It's pretty upright. Alrighty, so the second category is fuel, which is kind of important when you're talking about anything with an engine. So the 250, it has a 17 litre tank, and while it's not fuel injected like say the 300, so you might not be getting the same kind of fuel economy as you would with that, you'll still get an easy 350 k's out of a tank for only say $25 for a full fuel fill up, though I've never had to really do it from empty. And as usual on most bikes, the fuel gauge here is rather interesting at times. Sometimes it'll decide that after you've done 20 k's, it'll tell you that you've used kind of, you know, a good quarter of a tank already, and then other times it'll say you've barely used a thing. So category number 3 is handling, and I guess I can't really show you on much on the bike that really demonstrates that unless I'm riding along. But in terms of handling, the 300, I would say, and I know I'm making a lot of comparisons to it, but I think it's probably got lighter handling. I haven't ridden one yet, but I'm planning maybe to upgrade to one soon. And from the reviewers I've seen, it seems to me that the 250 is a little bit more sluggish when it comes to handling. Having said that though, from personal experience, I've got some very nice corners out where I live, not dirt ones obviously, and gives you a really chance to do some speed kind of stuff through there, and it handles really well. You can keep a line very easily, it pulls in and out of corners really nicely, but it doesn't feel overly light or too flickable. It's got a really nice kind of weighted kind of train track feel around a corner. Dry weight is about 150 or so kilos. So it is pretty light, and you do notice how the weight is centered very well down lower. Alright, so number 4 is power. Again with the fuel injected. These are not fuel injected. They started in 2008, I think, and have run up to the 2012 when the 300 was introduced. Even though they're not fuel injected, which would give them a little more pickup, which would be nice, they still, that top end, famous Ninja top end power is still really really fun for some, if you've got a lot of corners. Whereas if you're doing a lot of traffic situations, you might find that the lack of lower end torque might be a bit of an issue, but it's still got plenty of usable power down around the 3,000, 4,000 RPM markers as well, which is what I guess you'd be using mainly in more city traffic situations. Apart from that, the bike, I'm not exactly sure what the top speed is, but that's not really what should matter. It's about what the usable speed is, but it sits on say 90 to 100 kilometers per hour very nicely. No matter if you're going along a straight or through corners or whatever, it'll keep that speed and won't feel like you have to push yourself too much to keep it up at that speed. And last is overall as a learner approved bike, or as a LAMS approved bike. To me, I think it's a great first option. You can get these now for about the same same vintage, although that's probably not a good word to use for it, for around the 38, 39 Australian dollars mark, and so they are very, very good value for what you get in this bike. It doesn't feel like just a small capacity takeoff of another bike. It really feels like it can hold its own in its own way, especially through those tighter corners. It's very, very easy to ride. The seat height is not going to be a problem for anyone unless you're under about 3 feet. I can't really see any problems with the bike in terms of what it's like to ride as a learner. I bought this bike about a year ago, and it has been my first road bike, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my time on it. And even though I will be probably selling it soon, it's certainly not a hard bike or not a tricky bike to ride as a learner. So just some more notable points about this bike. One thing is the brakes, which are extremely good. I cannot compliment them enough. The front especially, of course they don't have ABS, but they're not going to throw you off if you accidentally grab too much front, but they've still got a really good progressive curve on them. And another nice feature about them is the headlights. A lot of the smaller bore bikes these days, or learner approved bikes, have only a single headlight because a lot of them have got more of a naked styling. The twin headlights on the Ninja are really exceptional. I have plus 120 globes in them, which, if you don't know, just means they're supposed to give 120% more brightness. I've only had a few rides at night because around here kangaroos are rather a bit of a problem when they jump out in front of you and try and commit suicide on the road. But yeah, they're really, really effective at night and have a great kind of spread. All the other lights and indicators are really visible, and they're not going to kind of disappear into the bodywork, which is one of the criticisms some people have with the 300. The mirrors do the job. They're not anything special. You might find if you're a bigger rider, you might have to tuck your elbows in a bit to be able to see clearly the road behind you. Also, the dash, a lot of people have a lot of hate for this dash because it's kind of taken straight off the old GPZs and the older Ninjas. But I mean, it's really functional. It's really easy to see. Really easy to read your speed and your revs, and all your lights here and everything are really visible. So, and it's not too much glare or anything. And the last point is one of the gripes I have with this bike, and a lot of people do, is the just these matte black plastics, not plastic, sorry, paintwork here seems to get very easily scratched by keys. I've actually wrapped one of my keys up in sellotape just so it doesn't scratch it too much, and this is just from a previous owner here, but you can notice on some of the areas it does chip quite easily from, I don't know, just little bits of rock coming up and stuff. But it is the only kind of point on this bike that feels like it's a little bit cheaply made. It's just such a small little inconvenience on what is a really great bike. So, alternatives. If you don't think this is really quite your thing, or you feel like you want something a little bit more modern features, there is quite a few alternatives that are available, well, to me personally, in Australia. And what my recommendations are, well, the bikes that I'm thinking of upgrading to, really. Maybe the Ninja 300 is a much more modern, optional ABS, electronic fuel injection, the same brakes, which apparently aren't quite as effective on the 300 for stopping power, but it is definitely a upgrade from this current model of 250. Secondly, if you're into adventure tourer style bikes or an upright riding position, the Kawasaki Versys, another Kawasaki, the engine I believe is still a parallel twin. Handles quite well through cities and that kind of thing. They're not a super adventure-y kind of bike, so if you're into that stuff, you might want to wait till you can move up to something a little bit more trail-oriented. And lastly would be for me the SV650 SU. These are not in particular order, by the way. It's the SU is just another way of saying that it's learner approved, which means some of that top end throttle is kind of, or top end torque has kind of been cut off there with a ECU, which apparently is very hard to replace if you were thinking of de-restricting one. But they are certainly more of a racy bike with a very aggressive riding position, and that V-twin was actually what was modified to be put into the V-Strom 650.